Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to walk you through step by step how I plan a trip. Everything from flights to transportation to hotels to meals and attractions, all of it. I want to start by planning a trip to one of my favorite places, Rome, Italy. And I have actually been to Rome 3 separate times, twice in the summer and once in the winter. So I feel really good about sharing tips and tricks with you and also just telling you some hidden gems and how I've found it easiest to travel there, taking different tours, trying buses and trains and all of the different things. So if you have a trip planned to Rome or you're wanting to plan one in the future, be sure to keep on watching. If you're new here, my name is Courtney and I teach travel tips and travel hacking, all so that you can travel more for less. If you haven't yet, please subscribe down below and let's plan a trip to Rome. So, the first step, of course, in booking your trip is going to be looking at flights. Now, there's a few different things I take into account when it comes to booking flights. Of course, I have a channel full of travel hacking videos and how to use your points and miles. But Rome and kind of Italy in general is notorious for being known as one of the harder places to get in Europe. So, my first tip, my first piece of advice, of course, is just to book your flights in advance. Start looking at least 6 months, if you can, in advance for good flight deals. You actually might come across a good cash deal. I've seen trips from the East Coast to Italy for around $500 or $600. If you see something like that, I would definitely snag it. Now, if you do have a lot of points banked and you're wanting to use them, then my tip would be to position yourself in Europe before actually flying to Italy specifically. For example, you could fly Air France or Virgin Atlantic and take a really inexpensive flight from a point standpoint from the East Coast to Paris. There's redemptions constantly between 6 and 15,000 points. So you could position yourself in Paris and then fly Paris to Rome, which cash price is extremely inexpensive, but you can also find great point redemption. Another thing when it comes to booking your flights is actually look into flying into Milan. Even though Rome might be your main destination, it would be worth looking into flying into Milan because I've seen some really good flight deals and then you could just take a train ride down to Rome. I highly recommend visiting the website or downloading the app Point Me, and they do have a really good free version. You can put in your departure destination and your ideal arrival destination, and they will search the web for any point redemptions that are available. You can search by specific dates or a specific month. That's a really great checkpoint to see what kind of redemptions are currently out there. But like I said, just start looking in advance. And then once you get your flight secured, you kind of have the most expensive and, in my opinion, one of the hardest parts of your trip done and out of the way. And then we can move on to all of the fun stuff. Even though I do think booking flights is super fun, I understand that not everybody does. So let's talk transportation once you've arrived to Rome. There, of course, are Ubers and taxi cabs all around the city. I would recommend once you arrive in the airport, you will need to either take a bus, a train, or a taxi or Uber into the city. It can be about a 30 to 50-minute drive depending on traffic and what time of day. Ubers and taxis can be really expensive. They're also super quick and convenient, whereas you can get a train into the city center and that can cost you as little as 10 euros. Do keep in mind though, once you get then to the train station in the center of Rome, you'll still need to get to your hotel or wherever you're staying. That's when it's probably a good idea to either walk if it's a short distance or take a taxi cab, especially if you have a bunch of luggage. Just be sure when you are booking a taxi that you confirm the price with them up front so that you don't potentially get scammed or get overcharged. Something I found super common in Rome is all of the Ubers are XLs, so they are a little bit more expensive, but they're very spacious and there's a lot of room for luggage. They also don't seem to be overly popular. So anytime we used one, it kind of arrived quickly within like 3 to 5 minutes. And it was a really good way to get around the city, especially at night when we needed to go a longer distance. But I have to say, ultimately, Rome is extremely walkable. It was, of course, built to be walkable. And I think walking is one of the best ways to take in the culture, take in all the vibes, the scenery, the history. So I would encourage you to walk when you're there instead of using transportation. Just make sure you have downloaded Google Maps, or you have an eSIM card, or you can connect to Wi-Fi so that you can have directions. You're going to be eating so much pasta, so much bread, and probably drinking a lot of wine. So there is no harm in getting your steps in and taking in all the beautiful city has to offer. Let's now talk about accommodations. So where are we going to be staying? There are absolutely no shortage of hotels in Rome. You will actually probably be overwhelmed with the amount of hotel choices. So if a hotel is the route that you want to go, I would just stick with the chain that you're most comfortable with. So if you're wanting to redeem points, or you have a status with the hotel and you want to go that route, that is a totally fine option. Another option that you have is getting an Airbnb. 2 of the times we have stayed in Rome, we have opted to do an Airbnb. One, because it is a lot less expensive than hotels, and 2, it does give you kind of a more authentic experience, in my opinion. They are typically very Italian style. It's someone's home or someone's past home or someone's apartment while they're away. So they're very Italian feel, which just makes the whole experience overall more enjoyable. And then last but definitely not least, I want to talk about my absolute favorite hotel in Rome that we have stayed at every single time we have gone. We keep coming back because we just can't get enough of it, and that is Donna Camilla Savelli. And it is actually located in the Trastevere region, which is a little bit more of a local neighborhood in Rome, and it's still super walkable to all of the amazing sites. And I would say approximately maybe like a 25 to 30-minute walk will get you into the city center. So while it is a little bit of a distance, like I said, I love walking through the city. Donna Camilla Savelli is definitely, though, a 5-star, very luxury hotel. It is very expensive, and I feel like in the recent years, it has just gotten more and more popular. The first time we ever went to Rome, we stayed there all 4 nights. And then the last 2 times, it was just way too expensive. We could not justify it. So we made sure to do just 1 night there, just because it holds such a special place in our hearts. They have this beautiful courtyard garden where they serve drinks every night, beautiful hotel rooftop that you can go up to and overlook the entire city. They even have breakfast included, and the rooms are just absolutely stunning. If you're working with a little bit of a lenient budget, I would highly recommend checking it out. Okay, now probably the most important thing of your trip to Rome is going to be what you're eating, where you're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You are going to be eating a lot. You are going to be indulging in some amazing food. So come prepared and be ready. For breakfast, typically you will see a lot of people in Italy, whether they live there or they're tourists, just having a croissant and espresso. So for breakfast, I highly recommend just kind of walking around and stumbling into a local cafe and seeing what they have. Can't do it the Italian way and you need eggs and bacon. They do have some American style breakfast places as well, but you can't go wrong with a Nutella-filled croissant and an espresso to start your day. Now, for lunch, when you're walking, you are going to stumble upon countless restaurants that you probably will be overwhelmed with and can't make a decision. So I just recommend walking around, seeing what looks good, seeing what smells good. Some of my dish recommendations: Rome is definitely known, obviously, for their pasta and their cuisine. And then when it comes to dinner, that's one of my favorite activities in Rome, is to sit down for a nice dinner, split a bottle of wine, and just indulge in the amazing cuisine that they have to offer. I do lean a little towards having a nicer dinner, but of course, the amount of sandwich shops and pizza shops that are available that you could just pop in and grab a quick bite, They are endless. But again, like I said, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you will not go hungry. There are going to be so many great restaurants, it will be hard to choose. My only advice to avoid is probably if you see someone standing outside with a menu trying to draw you in. Typically, those places cater to tourists, and it just won't be that real authentic Italian you're looking for. It'll also be really overpriced. But if you see people sitting outside, if you see the restaurant filled, then you're safe to go. So just a little piece of advice. Last but not least, let's talk about attractions and tours. Now, it's up to you on if you'd like to do a guided tour or a private tour. The options, of course, are endless. There are so many different tour companies. There are walking tours and bus tours. As soon as you step foot in Rome, you're going to probably be bombarded with billboards and advertisements, just all of the different offerings that they have. But a few of the must-sees when you're in Rome, of course, is the Colosseum, the Vatican, the Pantheon, the Trevi Fountain, and the Roman Forum. And something that I found really helpful on my trip was using the website With Locals. I'm obviously not sponsored, no one's paying me to say this. With Locals is a website where real locals that were born and raised in Italy become tour guides, and then you can create a custom tour with them. So I could not recommend it enough. They do have pre-curated tours on their website that you can choose from. So for example, tour the Colosseum, you can tour the Vatican, and it varies in length. You can choose a private tour or a group tour. You can choose to have a meal included or not. Once you choose the type of tour and the duration of the tour, you then get to pick your local. Like I said, they're born and raised there, so they obviously know the history and the culture. And so you meet your local tour guide and they take you on the tour. But the great thing, like I said, is it is also really customizable. So for example, I wanted to see all of the highlights and I didn't see a tour already packaged on the website that offered seeing everything, of course, because that's kind of crazy to be like, hey, in one day I want to do all of this. That is the next thing I would encourage you to do while you're in Italy is a food and wine tour. There is a curated tour on With Locals. It's called the Culinary Kickstart Tour that we did on our most recent trip. And we met with a local guide and we walked around town for about an hour and a half. We got to sample 6 different food items from local restaurants, and it was all within walking distance. We kind of just like popped into restaurant. I hope you guys found all of that information helpful. If you're planning on going to Rome soon, you're going to have an amazing time. If you're just planning to go to Italy in general soon, you're going to have an amazing trip. If you like this video and you want me to dive deeper into things to do in Rome or even some other cities like Naples or Florence or Milan, I would be happy to. Be sure to give this video a like and a comment. Thank you guys so much for following along. I really appreciate it, and I will see you very soon.